Hello, and welcome to SIPS Level 2, Certificate in Procurement and Supply, Module 1, which is Introducing Procurement and Supply. This session is looking at Learning Outcome 2, which helps you to understand the organisational impact of procurement and supply. So let's start with some definitions here about what we mean by profit and profitability. Profit is the amount of money an organisation makes after all of its overheads have been paid for. It's basically the difference between the amount earned and the amount spent. Profitability is an organisation's ability to make a profit, because not all organisations make a profit. Certainly if you're working in government or in the third sector, they're not driven to make a profit. Procurement aims to obtain the best value for money in order to reduce costs and, of course, increase profitability. Efficiency. This is performing a task with the least amount of waste in the shortest time possible. So efficiency is about saving time, not money. Now, procurement seeks to increase its efficiency in order to drive up value for money for its organisation. And there are two tools that can be used to scrutinise processes in order to increase efficiency. The first is Kaizen's 5S framework, which you can see on the left-hand side. This framework helps us to stop wasting time on things that don't really matter. So my best way to explain the Kaizen 5S model is imagine a really messy warehouse. When you go into that warehouse, you can't find what you're looking for, and you have to move lots of different boxes to actually locate what you're trying to find. So the 5S framework will help to remove that waste of time. And the first thing to do is to sort things out. Sort out what you need and what you don't need. The next thing to do is to set things in order. So put them in a way that's easy for you to find it when you need it. Then shine, which means to remove anything that's got any defects. Standardize, so create a process that means you can follow that in the future so it never becomes a messy warehouse again. And above all, sustain it. So as new stock is coming in, you put it away in the order that you've asked it to be set up in. The second model on the right-hand side comes from Tashio Ono's 7 Wastes. So lean thinking seeks to reduce or eliminate anything that doesn't add any value. And I've put up a really helpful way to remember this, which is TIMWOOD, TIMWOOD. And these are the 7 wastes. The first being transport. So this is moving items or information that doesn't need to be moved about. I for inventory, holding inventory in stock that you don't need to hold. M is motion, which is excessive movements within the workplace. So when you're laying out your warehouse, you want to put things that you use regularly nearest the front and things you use less regularly nearest the back. W for waiting. This is waiting for information to arrive, items to arrive, or even waiting for somebody to approve something. The first O for over-processing, doing more than you actually necessarily need to do. So that could be, adding something to the top of the product, like a ribbon or a bow that the customer just doesn't value and throws away. The second O is for overproduction. This is doing work before it's actually needed. So you're producing more than you can physically sell. And the final one is the D for defects, mistakes and errors that need to be reworked, which is a waste of people's time. So you need to try and get it right first time. So methods that we can do to achieve cost savings include economies of scale, which is essentially around the unit price reducing as the volume increases. You can look at fixed price contracts. Outsourcing if somebody can do it better and cheaper than you can. Value engineering and value analysis, which looks at the ratio between cost and functionality. And the idea is that you try to either maintain or increase the functionality for the same price, or reduce the price without affecting its functionality. Value engineering is done at the beginning of a product life cycle before it's been launched onto the market, whereas value analysis happens to a product that's already on the market. Now, procurement can help create budgets and monitor the spend relating to materials and the services. But why do we need budgets? Organisations have two types in the main, CapEx and OpEx. CapEx is for capital expenditure, so you'll use this budget for assets that your company buys and is going to keep in its business for a long time, like land, machinery, buildings. Whereas OpEx is operational expenditure. This is for things that you are consuming on a day-to-day basis, but not things that you're going to maintain or keep for a long period of time. Let's have a look at the graph on the screen. Which department has overspent their budget? Can you think of reasons why sales and marketing might not have spent as much as their budget? Perhaps it's because the selling period hasn't happened yet. Maybe they've got staff shortages, resulting in less work being done, even fewer campaigns. And what impact could the latter have? Would it mean reduced sales, for example? So what is a budget variance? Essentially, it's a value that differs from what you thought you were going to spend to what you actually spent. And a positive variance means that an organisation has spent more than the budget allowed, whereas a negative variance means the organisation has spent less than it was budgeted to, and so it's saved money. This is not always a good thing because it could have meant missed opportunities for marketing. Now, a temporary variance will correct itself over time. So, for example, there are items that we buy that are quite seasonal. So during the summer, perhaps we wouldn't spend as much as in the winter, but it will correct itself. A permanent variance will not correct itself. It has a permanent effect on the organisation, and that could have been because the price has gone up. So the only way you can really affect a permanent variance is to increase your budget or reduce demand and consumption. Now, procurement achieving good value for money contributes to organisations meeting their target and therefore to organisational success. Procurement needs to consider whole life costs, also known as lifetime costs or total cost of ownership. So let's look at the factors that need to be considered when calculating your total cost of ownership. TCA, this stands for total cost of acquisition. This is the costs associated with acquiring the goods and services, which could have included employing an expert to help you write a specification or a consultant. Any special tooling that might be required. Insurance. The operating and maintenance costs of the asset. Training. Physical storage space. And at the very end of its useful life, possibly the cost of disposal. So total cost of ownership and total cost of acquisition are different. So the acquisition costs is the amount of money an organisation has to budget in order to receive the goods and services, whereas the total cost of ownership takes into account all the costs that will be incurred over the lifetime of a material or service that has been purchased. Procurement departments aim to make the business as cost-effective and efficient as possible, and those objectives will include getting the best value for money, reducing the input costs, benchmarking to make sure that the price they're currently paying is in line with what the competition is paying, promoting ethical and sustainable buying, supplier management, cross-functional working, and risk management. Now, the procurement and supply functions can be structured in many different ways. So firstly, centralised or devolved, or even having some kind of a lead buyer function. Let's talk about the differences. Centralised procurement is where the majority of purchasing is done by one department and location, and this is often used by large organisations that have considerable budgets to manage. Devolved procurement is where individuals are given each responsibility of their own procurement. It could be that each department manager has the role of managing the budget and making the purchases required in their local area. A lead buyer is where one department takes responsibility for purchasing specific products or services. So, for example, ICT or stationery. This helps to achieve economies of scale, but products or services that may be fit for purpose for one department may not be for the other. And individual departments might not have the skills to achieve competitive prices. This leads me nicely onto the 5 rights of purchasing and supply, or procurement and supply. This is a job that procurement have to satisfy. So the goods and services we're buying need to be in the right quantity, at the right quality, at the right time, to and from the right place, at the right price. So let's take a deeper look at those 5 rights. Price, this is the amount charged, paid for a product or a service. Total costs include any other fees like shipping. Quality, the lower quality usually equates to a lower price, and a higher quality equates to a higher price. Now, procurement needs to obtain the right level of quality without enhancing the quality or inflating the price. With time, placing orders and receiving goods need to arrive on time, and expediters keep in regular contact with suppliers to track orders and deal with any potential delays. Quantity, this is about getting the balance between the economies of scale and just ordering in time to avoid money being tied up in inventory. And the place, consider the supplier's location and therefore shipping times and costs, and ensuring that deliveries are received to the right place. So let's look at the elements that contribute towards value for money, also known as cost effectiveness. So value for money, the value represented by the total cost of a purchase to an organisation. It's achieved by applying the 5 rights. So lower costs contribute to good value for money. Lower price does not always equate to lower cost. So it could be a lower quality, which could result in higher costs further down the line. For example, if needing to replace more often, or if processes need to be changed as a result. So value for money is made up of the 3 E's: efficiency, economy, and effectiveness. Now, efficiency, as I've already said, is about not wasting time. It's about the resources required to gain a particular outcome and doing that in the most efficient way possible. Whereas economy is about saving money, the price paid for a product or service in relation to the quality that's being received. And then effectiveness is the impact of getting value for money, and that can be measured either quantitatively or qualitatively. So quantitatively will be the facts and figures, the numbers, percentages, whereas qualitatively will be the opinions and customer satisfaction levels, which is more subjective. And that's the end of Learning Outcome 2. Thanks for watching.